Hey, what a great day for our first inaugural tour of Shack on the Road. The idea is to bring people together to enjoy the art and local sites that are so beautiful here that bring us all together. Southampton Art and Culture Committee is a project that I founded with the support of our supervisor, Jay Schneiderman, to nurture town residents' participation in the creation of our cultural landscape that we want to live in.
This is the maiden voyage of the Southampton Arts and Culture Committee, and we're going to the Madoo Conservancy, which is a pretty amazing place, botanical gardens, and then we're going to the Wilson Center, Watermill Center. So it's going to be a great trip.
My name is Shane Weeks. I'm part of the Southampton Town Arts and Culture Committee. I'm from the Shinnecock Nation. Today we'll be going on a tour that will be hosted by the chair of the committee, Hope Sandro, and the town trustee, Jay Schneiderman, will be leading us to the Watermill Center and Madoo, where we will also have lunch. This is a town-sponsored tour on a bus that is sponsored also by the town, and it's the first of its kind here in Southampton. And we're pretty proud to say that this is something that the town is going to support and to help support artists in Southampton and art organizations in Southampton.
Thank you so much for coming out to be part of this day with us. It's really exciting because the committee only started a year and a half ago with Jay's support, less than a year and a half ago. And one of his interests, how do we engage people in the town with the arts, to nurture that, for us to have ideas. And we listened to what some directors said and artists and people in the community, and one of the ideas was to bring people together to go to the Institute.
Hello everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm from the Shinnecock Nation, and today I'm going to be singing a traditional song kind of to welcome everybody here. It's kind of our protocol to welcome people when they visit us in our territory, and it's something that I want to share with you guys today. So the words here are Tabutne Gitche Mane Do, which means thank you, great creator.
So you just a spectator, or you? I'm sure you have. Yeah. I also work with
Welcome. My name is Elka Rifkin. I'm the director here at Watermill Center. How many of you have not been here before? Okay, just a small group. Okay, now I have to make this really interesting. All right, I'll do my best. So
Alice, have you been here before?
Yes, I was.
Oh, you have? Oh, okay.
So Watermill Center was originally built by the Western Union Company, and they built a kind of a mini factory here and a place for scholars and communications people and technology people and scientists to come together to brainstorm new ideas in technology and communications across the United States, and ultimately used overseas as well. So this was originally this was originally Shinnecock land, and then it was purchased by the Corwith family. The Corwith family farmed this property, still does farm. There are dear neighbors across the street and back behind us on this side, and also on this side actually. And then they sold some of the property to Western Union back in 1920s, and in 1926, this was the building that was built here. Thank you, Shane. So the footprint of the building you'll see today is pretty much the same, but the purpose of the building was to do light manufacturing, and I'll show you a few pictures of that. So it was built in 1926, and it was open until the mid-60s, and it closed in the mid-60s. But during that time, scientists were brought in from all over the world, not all over the world, all of the United States, to work on projects, as I said, in communications and technology. Okay, so when Bob found this, hold on, I just want to make sure I'm in the right spot. So when Bob found this, oh wait, you have to see this. It's just like so cool because it just sets the time period.
Oh wow!
The women's clothes, right?
No, there's no women's clothes there.
Thank you. The women's clothes.
That was the matches.
Thank you, Hope, for keeping me honest. And a lot of the people in this area were hired to work here. As a matter of fact, our caretaker, Stuart Foster, his father, who was also a farmer in the area but also was a scientist, ended up working here in this building. So when Bob found the building, it pretty much looked like this, although it was covered with a lot of vines, and it was in very, very bad shape because after it closed in the 60s, it was given to the town of Southampton. The town of Southampton didn't quite know what to do with it. It's a large building, and so basically they started using it to practice firefighting here. They would put light fires in the building, practice rescuing people, practice putting out fires here. So when it was found by Bob Wilson, it was not in terribly good shape, as you might imagine. But he was really fascinated by the history, that people had been here to incubate ideas in technology and science, and was looking for a place to incubate ideas in arts and the humanities. And he had been looking all over the world. A friend of his told him about this site, Richard Rutowski actually, who's a local, told him about the site. He came, fell in love, and then spent a lot of time raising money to try to buy it. And eventually was able to purchase it, and then did a major renovation project. Yeah. And it was, at the time, the longest renovation project in the town of Southampton. It took about 15 years to get it done. So what we did was first took this area that is right here and added this on, because that part of that wing was not there from the original building. Right. Okay, and then what we discovered, unfortunately, was that center tower was not safe anymore. So the center tower had to come down, and a new tower has been put up, and you'll see that in a little while. And then the renovation took place, as I said, about 10, 15 years to get it done. So what we did was first took this area that is right here and added this on, because that part of that wing was not there from the original building. Right. Okay, and then what we discovered, unfortunately, was that center tower was not safe anymore. So the center tower had to come down, and a new tower has been put up, and you'll see that in a little while. And then the renovation took place, as I said, about 10 years. That's done, because basically we artists, up-and-coming artists. This is what the new tower looks like. And you'll see it in much better shape soon. And then it's like, ta-da, 15 years later, it looks like this. But because he was a young and struggling artist at the time, he didn't have any money. So basically what he would do is he would go off to Europe and other places. He would do an opera someplace, or he would do a play someplace. He would make some money, and then he'd bring it back, and he'd get people to work on the building. and then after that it would get closed down. So every summer for about 15 years, it was open as a construction site, and he was also running his summer program here at the same time, and I'll tell you more about that along the tour. So in 2006, we finally opened year-round, and the grounds have developed since then. The building has remained pretty much the same, although the collection of art and artifacts has grown over time, and you'll get to see all of that in a little bit. So that's just a brief history. So Bob is a set designer, he's a theater director, and so what you're going to see as you move around the center is his vision of how his world could be, and it's very controlled. So as you look at things, most of you probably are interested or involved in the arts, you'll notice that there's a lot of textures that are different, lines and shapes that are different, and I'm talking now mostly about the landscaping work that he does, because all of the gardens are designed by Bob and then created by those of us who work with him. And so what he did was he's now created 3 entrances to the Watermill Center. The first is this, which you came in on the bus. There's another one over here I'm going to show you, and then we'll go over to the formal entrance. But everything you see has been thought about in a very significant way, even though a lot of it looks natural, a lot of it is not. We don't have bamboo natives here. Things have been placed here in a very specific way. You'll also see that part of the collection, the art collection that we have here at Watermill Center, is scattered throughout the grounds as well. So this too is an entrance. It's called the Bamboo Path, and it's an entrance into the gardens as well. And if you come, it's a really nice way to start. In the spring, the daffodils are in bloom, and there's a whole river of daffodils in there that you can't see now. It changes, as all gardens do, throughout the year, different seasons, but it's kind of a really beautiful, quiet, meditative way to enter the center. Enter the center. Sorry? We have 3 programs basically that happen here. One is in the summer, which has been going on for 25 years, which is the International Summer Program. That's where Robert Wilson invites artists from all over the world to come in and incubate projects that he is working on that are for his work that will actually be produced in other parts of the world or other parts of the country. So artists apply to that, and we go through a selection process. We choose about 60 to 80 that come here over the summer to do staging workshops with him and table workshops with him. While you're here, you're also, though, helping to take care of Watermill. So we're all gardening, we're all doing, laying down pebbles, chopping, what's the word?
Cutting bamboo shoots.
Yeah, cutting bamboo shoots. Basically, we do whatever needs to be done. And the nice thing about doing that is that as you come back to visit, or as you find yourself returning to Watermill, there's a connection that you have to the place because you've actually helped to create the place, which makes it really special for the people who have been here over time. So I'm not going to take you up here, but I wanted to point this garden out. It's starting to kind of fall back, except that we discovered this week, and it looks like a lot of them have already taken off. I came up here because the monarch butterflies are coming through right now, and this has been an amazing butterfly and bee garden that we protected this year for the first time with fencing really early. Usually we don't, but the deer tend to get in there and eat it. So this year we put the deer fencing in. You can see a few, but this is a monarch because there were like 50 chrysalis along the top of this thing, and they were lit, so they looked like little light bulbs. It was just amazing.
They are chrysalis. They're extraordinary. If you look at them carefully, look at the gold.
They have these little gold flecks on them. Yeah, there's one right here. You can kind of see on this side.
Look close.
That is so
Metamorphosis and transformation, I guess, is the theme of our trip today. So.
Anyway, so it just blew my mind. So I had to. Yeah, I'm glad this guy emerged. Anyway, that's cool. So the reason isn't it amazing?
Thank you so much.
Only just because we put the fencing up early.
Wow.
Had we not put, and they just happen to be migrating now. So
That's amazing.
I know. I was like texting all my staff saying, "You gotta come outside now and see this." It's like amazing. His parents took him to the plantation. He was born in Waco, Texas. They went to Louisiana to the Melrose Plantation. And he met Clementine Hunter, and she sold him a little painting of a little red bird, and it was the first time in his life that he actually came face to face with an artist, and it really changed his life. So he became a collector of Clementine's work. She's a self-taught artist. She's no longer alive. She was a self-taught artist. She basically did paintings, murals and paintings of her family's life on the plantation. So in the summer, we put her work in the Hunter house, for people to take a look at. We put the collection up for them. But it's also used by artists for other kinds of things, but that's why it's called the Africa House. The house that was built at the plantation is also a facsimile of the house in Ghana that her people came from. It was a thatched roof, obviously, and made out of different materials, but it had the same proportions, the same kind of roof and the shape, the shape of the roof and things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
So she also loved very, very colorful flowers, zinnias and things like that. So Bob's idea of this garden was to honor her as well as her collection that we happen to have here at the center.
Do you have her work in the main building too?
We've actually put her pieces away during the year. I don't think any of them are out at the moment, unfortunately.
And the gardens that Tony Piazza designed?
Bob designs and Tony makes magic happen. Yeah. The Clementine Hunters, yes, is part of the Watermill Center collection. Yeah, you can see it. Like on Discover Watermill Day, we almost always put it out. The day that the big day, what's open to the public.
It's very like Grandma Moses, right?
Well, yeah, because she was self-taught. She actually didn't know how to read or write, but she taught herself how to paint, and that's how she expressed her ideas.
And he recognized her at a really young age.
Yeah,
right?
I think he met her when he was like 9 or 10, something like that.
He saw something in her work.
Yeah, well, he was also just amazed from being an artist. Like, he had never in his life up until then met someone who made art their vocation, avocation. So it was a really big influence on him. And he did a play. He ended up doing a play called Zinnias, which is an homage to her.
Anything to be said about the Stonehenge-like monolithic structures?
So the stones are from Indonesia. They are from a little island called Flores, most of them, and they were created in about 2500 BC. They're quite old. They're not the oldest things we have on the property, but they're quite old. And we don't know a lot about the history of them, but they're all over the island of Flores, and so Bob spends a lot of time in the Pacific and in Indonesia, and he was able to purchase some and have them brought over here. So we have to wrap them every winter.
Really?
Yeah, we have to, because they were created in Indonesia. You don't have to worry about freeze and water and ice and stuff like that.
Are they oriented the way like Stonehenge might be oriented?
Well, we won't get a chance to go to the circle of stones in the back, but there is a circle of these that are placed exactly the way he found them in Indonesia.
Okay.
And the understanding
I'm noticing a bit of a circle here. So.
This is probably more Bob placing them, because you can see the apex is a chair from Einstein on the Beach, one of his chairs at the very end. So this is sort of more his placement. But the circle of stones in the back is done the way he found them.
But it's not oriented to the solstice?
No. Oh, gosh, no. These are coffin lids made out of iron wood.
Coffin lids?
It's for ancestral coffins, so they cremate their ancestors. As people die, they're cremated, and then their ashes are added to the ancestral coffin. So the second program that we do is a year-round program that's called an Artist in Residence program, and that's where artists apply to come and live and work at Watermill on their own projects. So the summer program is specifically geared around Robert Wilson's projects. Things that he, as I said, is going to produce in the next couple of years in different venues throughout the world. It's also where we do our biggest fundraiser for the year, because as you know, we're a not-for-profit organization and we need to raise funds to be able to support what we do. So we have a really huge gala here during the summer program that brings in about 50% of our operating budget. And then, because it's a very high-ticket item, 2 weeks later, we then have something called Discover Watermill Day, where the public is welcome to come for free and see most of the same exhibits that were here for the gala. It's important for us to raise the fund, but we also want to be open to the public and have anyone who wants to come see what we're doing, see what we're doing. The Artist in Residence program is very different than Artist Supply, either as individual artists or as groups. We go through a very stringent selection process, mostly looking at how the projects could actually be realized here. Because you'll see as we walk through the building, it's not a typical artist studio space at all. So artists, we have to think about their projects and how we can help accommodate what they're trying to do and make sure that they could be successful in the time that they're here. The residencies run about 4 weeks. And when you come, we provide a place for you to live, a place for you to work, a small food program and a small stipend to support the materials you might need for the work that you're doing. I wish we could do more. And we have local transportation available to the artists who are here. And we try to make sure that the cohorts are a mixture of visual artists, literary artists, performing artists. It's a kind of nice mix of people, researchers, scholars who are coming, so that when the group comes together, they're all doing different projects, but when they come together, they can sort of support each other in an interdisciplinary way rather than all be visual artists. So that's our goal. So I stopped to tell you that now because as you look through the site, artists who come here will use all aspects of both the grounds and the building for the projects that they do. So this has been, we've had performances in here before, we've had installations done in here. There's an installation that's been left from the summer that was actually designed by Bob, and that we're keeping it up to see how it holds up over time actually. So there's all, so we ask the artists to kind of think of the site as their studio, so that they can think about how to, they come with an idea for a project, but our hope is that they'll interact with the Watermill Center and that it might in fact influence or help them to rethink the work that they're doing or to evolve the work that they're doing. So this is what we call the, oh, I'm blanking out, I want to say Wonderland Gardens, but it's not. It's the transition, as Jay was saying, if that's the theme, from Watermill Town into the more structured, formal aspect of the Watermill Center. So it's basically has a natural feel to it, like you saw before, but again, very controlled in terms of like all these blueberries were planted by us. They weren't here naturally. And then you'll find objects planted throughout the space as well.
Okay, what's the history?
So these are house posts from Borneo. So normally there would be 4, okay, and they would be in a rectangular setting. The house sits on top of the circular pieces. Oh, wow. And then the inhabitants have ladders that get them up and down. Sometimes this is done so that they can keep their livestock underneath the house and keep it safe at night and protected. And sometimes it's done because of where they're living there's a lot of water. So it's a way of protecting themselves also from other wildlife or other humans, because they can pull the ladders up at night and then be safe up at the top. So the house sits on top. You'll love this. This is a talking drum from Java. Yeah. So it's a calling drum. It's a calling drum from Java. And we used to have another one over there, but it fell.
Did you see the talking drum that the Ruskin bought?
No. Remind me to show you the other drum that's. Oh, Bob probably showed you this summer.
They brought an amazing talking drum.
So these are, okay, so there are a few things in the collection that are just sort of Bob's projects. I don't know how to describe it. So these were found at a quarry here in America. And what he did was he placed them, and this is really hard to explain unless you know Bob's work, but he looks at these objects as though they are postures, human postures, okay? And so he'll often place them, and he'll do that with other objects in the collection as well, as a way to see how they interact and communicate with one another in the space, if that makes any sense to you. So when you see his work on stage and you see the way actors are, and props and chairs and tables are placed on stage and how they interact with one another in the light, this is just another example of that. And then this string piece is part of it. It was part of an installation and a performance for the gala. Hey Jay, since you curated this tour, do you want to come here and talk a little bit about why you picked Watermill as one of the 2?
Yeah, so Hope asked me, since she said, why don't you put together the first tour? Where would you like to go? And we are so blessed with so many amazing places like the Parish Art Museum, Longhouse Preserve, it's actually hard to choose, but I had been to this place a couple times, and this is really an extraordinary place. You're getting a sense of kind of the deep vision that Robert Wilson has, and how immersed in the arts he is, and his eye for things. And if you haven't met him, you know, if you ever get that opportunity, you'll be very fortunate. He's a really a genius artist. And so my thought, because there's still, I think, a lot of people who don't even know that this place is here. And you know, they have residencies, they have programs that are open to the public, and we're gonna see the archive too. Has anybody been through the archive, or anybody not been to the archive room before? So that is going to be, it's a real treat to be able to go and be so close to so much creation. It's really special. So you know, it was that archive room, and you know, the idea of being able to walk through this place with a group of people, and that made me think this has got to be on the first stop. So that's just why we're here.
So this is what we call the formal entrance. If you were to come to the gala, most likely you would come through this entrance, and then this would be your first exposure to the building itself. And what Bob again has done is he's, from a very natural setting to a much more structured and architectural setting, he's tried to create a transition of texture and color, and then the softness of these grasses. And what I love about these grasses is they actually go through 3 seasons with us, because they started, as you know, as a green, then they get these beautiful blooms in the fall, and then they turn this amazing golden color in the winter. So we keep them up all year long. We tie them up as though they almost look like haystacks. And then in the spring we cut them back off so they can regrow. But they really lend a softness to what is a very, very, very stark architectural building. Again, remembering that the footprints was created by Western Union, not by Bob, but he came up with the idea for the cladding, which is zinc, a lot of glass. Most of the windows were the original spacing of the windows, except for these larger ones on the east side, and you'll see more on the other side. The building in the center is what we call the knee, the K-N-E-E, which is the joint between this side, which is the living spaces, and this side, which is the working spaces. So the knee becomes a transitional space for both, and that's all. So this is the knee. The knee, to me, is probably the most interesting room in the whole building. I find it very meditative. It's also very dynamic at the same time. Western Union built this building on the east-west and north-south-south axis. So we're standing, like that is due east, okay, due west, and if these doors were open, due north and due south. That was the scientists doing that. That wasn't Bob's idea, but he loved the idea that this is actually right here, the center of the center. It's where all that energy sort of comes together. And when he's working on stage, he talks a lot about horizontal and vertical lines, and you're going to see that played out everywhere in the center. And he talks about how when horizontal lines to him represent space, and vertical lines represent time, which is absolutely the opposite of the way I was taught about lines like that. But he thinks that this is being about space and this about being about time, and that this is infinite time, because it just keeps going into the universe. So where those lines come together, particularly on a stage, is where action takes place in his work. So this particular spot, whether it's here, at this level, at the next level, at the floating ceiling that's above us, or downstairs later in the library, is a very dynamic place for Watermill. So this space was created as a way to transition from your living space, there are dormitories in here, to your working space. So you're not driving home, you're walking home. So the idea was to how to slow you down for your commute back and forth between your living space and your working space. And you have no choice in this room but to slow down. So it's otherwise you can get, except for if you're a child. Children coming through here are like, boop, 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 boop. They're like popcorn. Like kids just don't even think about it, but most of us have to like really think about it. So as I mentioned before, this side of the building is all residential. This room is what we call the dormitory. Some of the artists who come for residence actually live in this space while they're here. I'm not going to take you back into the living spaces right now because we have a damaged area due to a leak with all the torrential rains this week, and also because we have a couple people who are actually staying here. But what you're starting to see is that part of the collection is everywhere in the building. So as you walk around, you're going to see textiles that are out, masks from different cultures, pottery, drawings, and one of the things that you'll probably notice right away is that very few things are behind glass. And when Jay talked about the archive, it's true of the collection throughout the Watermill Center. Bob's vision is that people need to get up close to artwork, that they need to have an intimate experience with that artwork, that they need to be able to touch things that have been made by others, to touch things that are 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 years old in order to really have a sense of a relationship with art. And I can tell you from my experiences with children, when children come here and I put a 2,000-year-old Persian pot in their hands, it completely changes their relationship to being in a museum. But this is Bob's apartment, and this is sort of the epitome of what Watermill, what he wants it to be, which is he lives around all these amazing pieces and objects from all over the world. A piece, we change this every 5 or 6 years because the phones kind of it's also often used for exhibitions. We're setting up tomorrow. Andrew's going to be projecting images onto this wall, so we're setting up here so it's not quite as clean as it normally is. But it gives you, feel again, where we're going to put the box really into chairs. This gives you a kind of real intimate look at some of the chairs. Sense that there are lots and lots and lots of objects from the collection that have all been very carefully placed with one another. Jasmine will be thrilled because she'll get to go into the archives, and she loves going in there. Horizontal on one side, so when you put it up to the light, it does this amazing, that's so cool. I know, right? Everyone's been working.
This is a really interesting piece here too.
Yeah, a lot of the pieces that have come to us have been outside. So they've been, like, this is not obviously considered a valuable piece because it hasn't, you know, this is a worker or something. But it's been weathered by...
Oh, I love how it's been weathered.
Yeah, like in Bob's apartment, did you see all those statues that are all wood? You can barely make out the human form, but there's something really beautiful about how they've eroded by weather.
What's interesting about it, something Gene and I were remarking about this, that some pieces really have no idea when or what.
Or what? Sometimes what even what they are.
Come closer.
Once again, everybody, welcome to Madoo. As I was saying earlier, this is Robert Dash's garden. He moved here in 1967, and there was nothing here. It's what's called tractor turnaround land. And it wasn't really farmed. So unlike a lot of land, cover your ears, in Southampton, that has been potato farmed, and it's not necessarily the most environmentally friendly form of farming, we have a pretty darn non-toxic garden here, and it's always been organic. When you're looking around, and when you're looking around at the trees like the beech tree, like these cryptomeria here, another beech there, keep in mind that Bob planted everything here. There was nothing here. You'll see a painting at the end of the tour from 1969 of what he found when he first moved here. And so these trees, it's due to, you know, great weather, smart planting, great soil, and, you know, most probably organic gardening at the end of the day. Behind me are the Asian Pond Gardens. They were renovated 2 years ago and went from a slightly environmentally unfriendly aspect where the water was just pumped in and went through the cracks in the liner to a circular system where the water comes in at the end, gets pumped. There's a water recharge area here. The rocks and plants clean out the water, and it flows back, and it's just a big circle. So we never refill it. We don't spend too much on electricity. Great system for us. And it's a good teaching system for kids when we have kids programs. A few of you saw the frogs. There's still some there. And someone had asked if they came here. Tracy asked if they had come here on their own. They did. When we rebuilt it, we dug the whole thing out, put a plastic liner in, filled it with town water. And April, when I was leaving my office and walking down the driveway, all I heard was beep, 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 beep. And they had just somehow found their way from Sag Pond over here. So it's pretty cool because it's not like, oh, we didn't save like a shovel full of dirt or anything like that. They literally were somehow found their way. So with a group your size, what's probably easiest is that you just roam around this little area right now. Be very careful on the telephone pole paths. They're slippery now when they're wet, but you can go over the bridge and around the paths. And what we'll do is we'll meet on the other side of the shed building, the Lou building, which is on the other side of that.
Where the green door is?
Yeah, on the other side of that.